Hi, everyone. Welcome to English Story School, where every story brings you one step closer to mastering English. Let's learn, laugh, and grow together, one tale at a time. Have you ever felt like you're in a never-ending loop? You're working hard, putting in the hours, yet somehow success feels like it's always just out of reach? Maybe you're sitting in a lecture hall, fighting to stay awake in a class that feels like it's going nowhere, and you're wondering, how in the world am I supposed to turn this into something meaningful? Or maybe you've been chasing a dream for what feels like forever, only to see the finish line keep moving further and further away. Trust me, I've been there. In fact, I used to be stuck in exactly that same place, and now I'm a CEO. Crazy, right? Let me take you on a trip down memory lane. There was a time when I was a student, just like you, and it felt like everything I did was a struggle. I was juggling my coursework, projects, deadlines, and 1,000 things on my to-do list. But no matter how hard I worked, nothing seemed to click. Everyone around me seemed to have it together, getting opportunities left and right, while I felt like I was running in circles. I had big dreams of success, but they seemed so far away. Every day, I was just trying to keep my head above water. I remember it like it was yesterday, the moment that really knocked the wind out of me. It wasn't just any project, it was the project. You know, the one that you pour every ounce of yourself into, the one where you tell yourself, this is the one. This is the project that will finally prove I've got what it takes. I stayed up late for days, balancing between studying, making notes, refining ideas, and getting everything just right. I double-checked every little detail, triple-checked my sources, and quadruple-checked my conclusions. It was supposed to be perfect, right? I felt it in my bones. This was the big one. The moment everything would click. I had worked tirelessly, driven by this belief that all the hours, the late nights, the sacrifices would finally pay off. As the deadline approached, I felt a mix of exhaustion and anticipation. I thought, this is it. I've done everything I possibly could. I've given it my all. So when I submitted it, there was this brief moment of relief, a sense of accomplishment, a deep breath. I was proud of myself. It was like no matter the outcome, I had given it my everything. And honestly, I was excited to see what kind of recognition I'd get. I expected a big, shiny A. It was only fair, right? But when the grade came back, I was blindsided. Instead of the A I'd imagined, I got a grade that made my stomach drop. It was nowhere close to what I had hoped for. It felt like the world tilted a little. I looked at the paper in disbelief, trying to wrap my head around what went wrong. How could this happen? I had worked so hard. I had sacrificed so much. I had really put everything into this. And yet, it was a far cry from the success I thought I'd earned. In that moment, all the energy I had poured into the project, all the sleepless nights and frantic revisions, seemed like it had been in vain. I felt crushed. It wasn't just the grade that hurt. It was the sting of self-doubt that followed. My mind started to race. What's the point of all this? If this is the best I can do, then what hope do I have for the future? My confidence took a nosedive. I wondered if I was even cut out for this. Maybe I wasn't as smart as I thought. Maybe I wasn't as capable as I hoped. I started questioning everything about myself, my effort, my abilities, my potential. Was I meant to be just another average student, destined to float along with the crowd, never really making a mark? I'll be honest, that moment felt like a punch to the gut. It was a low point, and for a while, it made me wonder if this whole journey was even worth it. All that effort, was it really going to lead me anywhere? Or was I just spinning my wheels, going through the motions while everyone else seemed to have it all figured out? But here's the kicker. As painful as that moment was, it was also the turning point. It was the moment when I realized that my worth and my future weren't defined by a single grade. or by a single failure. It wasn't about perfection. It was about persistence. It was about learning from the tough times, not letting them define me. That's when I learned that setbacks, disappointments, and failures are not signs to give up. They're opportunities to rise, to get stronger, to push through the challenges and come out the other side even more determined. That's when everything began to change. But then something shifted. It wasn't a dramatic epiphany, but a quiet realization that came over me in the midst of all that self-doubt. It was like a little light bulb flickered on in my mind, and suddenly, everything I'd been struggling with made sense. It wasn't a grand moment of clarity or some sudden burst of genius. It was just the truth hitting me like a wave. Success isn't reserved for the smartest, the most talented, or the ones who have it all figured out right from the start. I remember sitting there, reflecting on everything that had happened. The late nights, the stress, the frustration, the setbacks, and something clicked. I had been trying so hard to wait for the perfect moment, thinking that once I had all the pieces in place, success would magically fall into my lap. I thought I needed everything to align perfectly, the right timing, the right resources, the perfect set of circumstances, to even begin. I kept thinking, once I have this figured out, once I learn more, once I get that one thing in place, then I'll be ready. But that perfect moment never came. It just stayed out of reach, always slipping further away the harder I tried to grasp it. And then, in that moment of doubt, I realized the perfect moment? It's an illusion. There's no one right time to start. There's no secret formula or magical plan that will make everything fall into place. The reality is this: success is built on persistence. It's about the decision to keep going, even when things are messy, imperfect, or unclear. Success doesn't happen because everything is just right. It happens because you decide to keep moving forward, step by step, no matter how bumpy the road might seem. It's so easy to get stuck in this mindset of perfectionism. We think that to succeed, everything needs to be flawless. The truth? No one has it all figured out. The smartest? They're learning as they go. The most talented? They're still putting in the work, refining their skills. And the ones who seem like they have it all together? They've probably struggled just as much as you and I. The difference isn't about waiting for the stars to align. It's about showing up every single day, doing the work, and sticking with it, even when things don't go according to plan. And that's when I had my breakthrough moment. It wasn't about waiting anymore. I realized that the real secret to success was action. Action, no matter how small, is what moves you forward. It's the small, consistent steps you take each day, whether it's reading, learning, practicing, networking, or simply showing up and doing the work. These little actions compound over time, and before you know it, they build momentum that can carry you farther than you ever imagined. In that moment of clarity, I made a decision. I would no longer wait for everything to be perfect. I would no longer waste time looking for that magical formula or waiting for the ideal moment to begin. I'd start now. I'd take action, even if it wasn't perfect, even if I didn't have it all figured out, even if the path ahead was uncertain. And with that decision, everything started to change. It wasn't about waiting for the perfect opportunity. It was about making the most of the opportunities right in front of me. It was about taking consistent action, even when it seemed like progress was slow or hard to measure. Because I learned something invaluable in that moment. Success isn't about being perfect from the start. It's about learning, adapting, and keeping your eyes on the bigger picture. The journey isn't supposed to be perfect, and that's exactly what makes it worthwhile. And so, with each small step, I found myself closer to where I wanted to be. And I began to see that the only thing holding me back was the belief that success was something I had to wait for. The truth was that success is something you create. And the first step in creating it is taking action, no matter how messy or imperfect it may seem. Let me take you on a little journey. Picture this. You're standing at the start of a long road, the kind that stretches out endlessly ahead of you, with the destination far beyond your view. The path seems daunting, the challenge is unknown, and there's a nagging voice inside your head telling you to wait until everything is perfect, until the stars align and the timing is just right. We've all been there, right? It's the classic, I'll start when I'm ready feeling. That sense of waiting for the world to be in the right place before you make your move. But here's the thing. Waiting for the perfect moment is often just another form of procrastination. It's an easy excuse to keep putting things off, to avoid stepping into the unknown. So one day, I had an epiphany. I realized I didn't have to wait for everything to fall into place. I didn't have to wait until I had the perfect plan, the best tools, or the clearest idea of how everything would unfold. No, I decided that I would take action, even if it was just a tiny step forward every single day. It didn't have to be big. It didn't have to be groundbreaking. It just had to be. And so, I started small, really small, like embarrassingly small. One day, I'd read one article, just one. It wasn't a whole book or an entire course. It was just a single piece of information, a small, digestible bite of knowledge that could inch me closer to my goals. It didn't seem like much at the time, but that one article, it was like adding a single brick to a wall. It didn't look like a wall at first. It was just a brick. Another day, I'd reach out to one new person. Maybe it was an email, a LinkedIn message, or even just a comment on someone's post. It didn't matter how big or small the interaction was. The key was making the connection. At that moment, I wasn't expecting anything dramatic to happen. I didn't think, oh, this will change my life today. I just thought, I'll start building a network. Little did I know, those small, random conversations would snowball into relationships that would support me later down the line. And let's not forget the side project. I dedicated just 30 minutes, sometimes 15, working on something I was passionate about. I didn't set lofty goals like finish the whole project today or create a masterpiece overnight. No, I just worked. I chipped away at it bit by bit, piece by piece. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't show-stopping. But there was something magical happening behind the scenes. Here's where the true power of these tiny actions starts to show itself. They began to add up. In the beginning, it felt like nothing was happening. Honestly, sometimes it felt like I was wasting my time. How could reading one article or sending one message make any difference? The progress was so slow, so small, that it felt like I wasn't moving forward at all. But the more I stuck with it, the more I noticed something incredible. The momentum started to build. The tiny steps weren't so tiny anymore. The knowledge I gained from those articles slowly started to shape the way I saw things. The people I reached out to became part of my network, some offering advice, others sharing opportunities, and many simply cheering me on. And those 30-minute sessions on my side project, well, they started to add up to something real. Not in a grandiose, immediate way, but in a quiet, cumulative way that I couldn't deny. Here's the magic. You may not see the results in real time. You may not feel like you're accomplishing much, especially when you're focused on the tiny steps, the small actions that seem insignificant. But over time, those small efforts turn into something much bigger. It's like planting a seed. At first, you see nothing, but if you keep watering it, if you keep nurturing it, eventually it grows. Slowly, yes, but steadily. What started as just a few articles, some small connections, and tiny bursts of productivity became a snowball. Those little efforts were laying the foundation for something greater. I wasn't building it all at once. I was letting it take shape naturally, piece by piece. And as I kept taking action, I noticed that the momentum was building. It felt like I was gathering speed, like I was rolling down a hill and couldn't stop if I wanted to. The magic here is that those small actions compound. They might not feel huge in the moment, but they accumulate in ways you couldn't have possibly imagined. The person you reached out to today might lead to a connection that will be invaluable in a year. The 30 minutes you spend on your side project today might be the building block for a larger goal in the future. It's all about consistency. It's about showing up no matter how small the steps seem. So, the next time you find yourself waiting for everything to be just right, don't. Instead, take that first step, even if it's small. Start reading one article a day. Reach out to one person. Work on your project for just 30 minutes. It may not seem like much at first, but trust me, those small actions will snowball, build momentum, and take you further than you ever thought possible. Sometimes it's the tiny steps, taken one after another, day after day, that make the biggest difference. And eventually, you'll look back and realize that those little efforts led you to places you could have never reached by waiting for everything to be perfect. Oh, get comfortable, because this is where the real magic happens. You're about to hear a story that will make you think differently about what it takes to make your dreams a reality. Spoiler alert, it's not about waiting for the perfect moment or wishing for the right resources to magically fall into your lap. It's about something far more powerful, something anyone can tap into, no matter where they're starting from. Let me take you back to a time when I was just like many of you, a struggling student. The kind of student who had big dreams, massive ones actually, but not much in terms of tangible resources. I didn't have the connections, the money, or the skills that I thought I needed to succeed. In fact, most days I felt like I was just spinning my wheels, trying to stay afloat in a sea of assignments, exams, and endless to-do lists. It wasn't the easiest time. There were moments where doubt crept in, where I'd question if all the effort I was putting in was ever going to pay off. Everyone around me seemed to have it all together. The fancy internships, the connections, the polished resumes. And there I was, with nothing but a stack of textbooks and a burning desire to change the world. But here's the kicker. I came to a realization. The big dream, that vision of who I could become, wasn't dependent on the things I didn't have. It wasn't about waiting for the stars to align or hoping for the right skills to magically appear. No, the secret to making those dreams a reality wasn't about waiting for the perfect moment. It was about showing up every single day. And no, I'm not talking about showing up in some dramatic, overnight transformation kind of way. I'm talking about something far simpler, but far more powerful. Consistency. You see, I didn't have to be perfect. I didn't have to have it all figured out. I didn't need to be the smartest person in the room or the most talented. What I needed, what I could control, was the willingness to take action, even when it felt small, even when it felt insignificant. I started with tiny, unglamorous steps. And I'm talking tiny. Some days it was just reading one article or doing one extra hour of work. Other days, it was reaching out to someone I admired, sending an email or message, even though I had no idea if they would respond. I worked on side projects in the small pockets of time I had, 30 minutes here, an hour there. Sometimes I'd feel like I was barely moving forward, but I stuck with it. Why? Because I had a vision, a clear picture of where I wanted to be. And I knew the only way to get there was to keep showing up. Now let's talk about momentum. This is where things get juicy. At first, those small actions didn't seem like much. I wasn't seeing instant results, I wasn't landing huge opportunities, and I wasn't turning heads. But guess what? Little by little, those small, consistent steps started to add up. Day after day, I showed up. Not perfectly, but persistently. And here's the magic that started to happen. Those tiny efforts started to build a snowball effect. One email turned into a conversation that opened up an opportunity. One article led me to a skill I could apply to a side project, and that project turned into something real, something that over time began to take shape as a business. Each tiny decision to keep going, no matter how small or imperfect, added another brick to the foundation I was building. The momentum grew, slowly sure, but steady. And eventually, almost imperceptibly at first, that momentum propelled me forward in ways I couldn't have imagined. I started to attract bigger opportunities. I connected with the right people. The business I'd been working on in those small pockets of time began to take off. The skills I thought I was missing, they came with experience and with practice. Every little bit of effort made a bigger impact than I could have predicted. Now, here's the kicker, the part that might surprise you. It wasn't about the resources I didn't have or the skills I thought I was missing. It was about the commitment to the process. It was about the willingness to keep showing up, even on the days when things weren't going perfectly, even when I didn't feel like I was making any headway. It was about sticking to the process, no matter how small the steps seemed. Fast forward to today, and I'm standing at the helm of a thriving company, a CEO with a team, a vision, and a clear sense of purpose. But the thing that gets me every time is this. I didn't get here because I was gifted with some amazing advantage. I didn't get here because I had all the resources or the perfect plan. I got here because I committed. I committed to showing up each day, no matter how imperfectly and no matter how slow the progress seemed. Those tiny steps, those little actions became the driving force behind everything. So, what does this mean for you? You might be looking at where you are right now, maybe feeling stuck, maybe feeling like you're missing something, or maybe wondering how anyone can make it without the right resources or skills. Here's what I want you to know. You don't need it all figured out. You don't need to wait for the stars to align. You just need to show up. Start small. Read one article. Reach out to one person. Work for just 30 minutes a day on that side project. It might feel like you're not making much of a dent, but trust me, that's the secret. Keep showing up, keep taking those small steps, and watch as the momentum builds. Because before you know it, you'll look back and realize that all those tiny, imperfect steps, taken one after another, have taken you further than you ever thought possible. So go ahead, take that first step. It doesn't have to be perfect, but keep showing up and watch the magic unfold. Ah, I hear you loud and clear. You're probably thinking, this sounds great, but there's no way I have the time for it. My schedule's packed to the brim, and I'm barely getting through the day as it is. I get it. I've been right there running from task to task, feeling like I'm juggling 20 different things at once and barely keeping my head above water. It's exhausting, right? Every time you think you can breathe, there's another thing on your to-do list demanding attention. But here's the beautiful thing I want to share with you. Persistence doesn't have to take up hours of your day. In fact, you don't need to carve out huge chunks of time to make progress. It's not about having a perfect, flawless plan that requires mountains of effort. It's not about finding extra time when you're already running on empty. It's about showing up, even if it's just for 5 minutes. You see, here's the secret that many don't realize. Progress isn't always a giant leap forward. It's often made up of tiny, consistent steps. The real magic lies in your ability to keep showing up day after day, even when it feels like you don't have the energy or the time or the resources. It's about those small choices you make that over time create big results. Imagine this. You're building a house. Now, no one can build a house in a single day, right? It's a process. But if you start with just one brick, laying it down slowly, one after another, no matter how tired or stressed you are, Before you know it, you'll have a solid structure. And even though those bricks seem small and insignificant at first, when combined over time, they form a foundation that can hold up an entire house. That's what persistence is. It's not about doing it all at once. It's about doing it, even when you don't feel like it. I know, it's easy to feel like I don't have the time for anything extra. And I totally get it. Life is busy. But here's the kicker. You don't have to give hours to it. In fact, you don't even need to give more than 5 minutes some days. You can start small. 5 minutes of reading, 5 minutes of writing, 5 minutes of brainstorming. It doesn't matter how small it is. It matters that you commit to that tiny action. Let me share a secret with you. You know what gets people to success? It's not the ones who spend hours working nonstop or burning the candle at both ends. It's the people who show up consistently, day after day, no matter how tired they are, no matter how packed their schedule is. Those tiny actions, those 5-minute bursts, they compound. They add up. Slowly but surely they begin to build momentum. Think about it like this. If you dedicate just 5 minutes a day to learning something new, after a week, you've spent 35 minutes learning. After a month, 150 minutes. And by the end of the year, well, that's over 30 hours of learning without it ever feeling like a huge time investment. You could read a book, learn a new skill, or take steps toward your big goal. Tiny, consistent actions add up. They don't feel like much in the moment, but over time, they create massive change. But here's the real beauty of this whole process. It's not about perfection. It's not about making those 5 minutes look flawless or doing everything right. It's about just showing up. It's about making the commitment to yourself that no matter what the day looks like, you're going to do something, however small, to keep moving forward. It's about showing up when you can, even if it's for 5 minutes, and doing it over and over again. You'll be amazed at how much you can accomplish when you don't let the pressure of perfection paralyze you. You might be thinking, but 5 minutes? Really? Is that enough? Trust me, yes. It's more than enough. I promise you, if you make the decision to take those 5 minutes every day, to dedicate even just that little bit of time to your goals, it's going to accumulate in ways you can't yet see. You're planting the seeds today, and in time, those seeds will grow into something bigger than you can imagine. Remember, nobody becomes a great athlete, a successful entrepreneur, or an expert in anything by doing everything perfectly or all at once. They get there by showing up every day, even if the steps are small. It's the consistency that matters. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be persistent. The key is to keep showing up, even when it feels like you're not making a huge impact. So, the next time you feel overwhelmed, when you think there's just no way you can add one more thing to your plate, remember this. 5 minutes is enough. 5 minutes a day will move you closer to your goals. One tiny action, done consistently, will create the momentum you need to keep moving forward. You don't need grand gestures. You don't need hours of free time. All you need is to show up, no matter how small the step. Just show up and keep showing up. In the end, it's not the big, grand moments that change your life. It's the little moments strung together day by day. Those are the moments that lead to real progress. So, take that first step, no matter how small, and then take another. Keep showing up, and watch as your dreams start to take shape in ways you never thought possible. Here's the truth I wish I'd known sooner. Waiting for the perfect moment to act will always leave you waiting. But if you take action, no matter how small, no matter how imperfect, you're already ahead of the game. Success isn't an overnight phenomenon. It's built day by day, step by step. Every small action you take, every little win, builds the foundation for something much bigger. So if you're feeling stuck, unsure, or like your dreams are just a little too far out of reach. This is your wake-up call. Don't wait for the stars to align. Don't wait for the perfect moment to begin. Start today. Start small. Take that first step, even if it feels insignificant. Trust me, those little steps will add up faster than you think. And before you know it, you'll look back and realize how far you've come. Remember, your journey doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs you to show up every single day. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.